Hello and welcome back. It's Colette from the Sacred Rose Temple, and I am joined by Triinu Siller to have another interview with regards to the 13 Roses and sacred sexuality. It's a pleasure to welcome Triinu to this interview to discuss her journey in the 13 Roses and how sacred sexuality has been working within her own being and field and life. And Triinu has worked with me for some years in many courses. She is a qualified teacher of yoga and of the sacred body prayer. She has done many courses in tantra and sacred sexuality. And so with great pleasure, we say hello to Triinu, and I invite her just to give us a little overview of what Triinu does and how she found herself here.
Hello from me as well. So lovely to be here with you, Colette. How did I find myself here and on this overall path? Well, it's really been a long, lifelong journey. I have always felt, since probably my teenagers, maybe even from childhood, there is like something more, something that I can't grasp. So it's always been on this, on the background, in the back of my head, kind of. But yeah, other courses that definitely we will talk about. A few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, in France in a retreat, and when I saw Colette first time face to face, I just felt it that there's something in here, and since then we've been connected. And I have done, as Colette mentioned, yoga teacher training in Chakra Evolution. I have done numerous courses continuously, basically non-stop for the past 5 years with her. So this is how I've been finding myself through France, which basically brought us together.
Yes, indeed it did. So what was your life before that? What kind of work were you doing, and what were you interested in? How has it differed, so we can give people who are listening to the interview like I was, listening to these interviews in my everyday job, feeling this like deep spark to change things.
Yes, that's exactly what I felt. Well, I was working as a communication and marketing manager in an international company, which was a perfect job. And I was working from home, which I loved. I was working with my international colleagues, which I loved. It allowed me to travel, arrange and organize things. So it was, in a way, really interesting and always, challenging as well. But at the same time, always on the background, I always felt kind of lost. I felt it's not really what I want. Maybe in the beginning, I was like, really looking for, thinking that maybe the problem is with me, with myself, that, I'm not really realizing how magnificent and amazing it is what I have been studied in, because I studied communication. I studied it in Estonia and in Spain, and I've done voluntary service working with children with socioeconomic problems, and lived in Spain for some time, and then obviously found my job, which was all a really big coincidence as well. And always there was this big part of me which was like really lost in this, inside all of this. So this kind of like lostness, and obviously also the breakup of my first love, of my first relationship, which also like pushed me even further into like searching for myself, like who am I, what do I really want. And that brought me to yoga. I was doing a yoga course for several years back then it was one of the world's biggest yoga school branches, which was also present in my town. So I was learning with them, and obviously Tantra came also through that school, and all the, next teachers that I started to work with. It was all like a continuous kind of like natural path where one thing brought to the other. But it was always this searching, like, okay, but what am I actually good at? Because I never felt good enough. And, like disconnected from this deeper essence, like, oh, like I want something else. I want something different. So that's always been like pushing me further and forward.
Yeah, I want to just highlight that because I know that many of the listeners will be feeling that. Many of us feel that little pull. And once we follow that pull, it doesn't actually stop, does it? The pull keeps pulling. And that I feel that the answer to that, it's the soul tugging at you, saying, come on, like follow your dreams, live a more fulfilled life. What do you want? What's the bigger picture? There's more to life than this mundaneness and this everything we get distracted with that doesn't fill that pull. And so yeah, answering that call is the most incredible thing that you'll ever do, because it leads you on a path of the not knowing. And like you've just shared, like we go from things that we've qualified in. I'm the same as you. I've got a big educational background and studied most of my life, and then I'm like, no, this is not it. In my job I was like, this is amazing, but it's not it. And that pull of it's not it, what am I looking for, is the deep seeker inside of us that seeks something more fulfilling. So totally hearing you and what brings you to do the conscious work, because it's very similar to my own pull and experience with this work. So you felt the pull, but what about the resistances? Because we also feel them too, don't we? What were the resistances when you stepped, say, into this body of work? Because this latest body of work is a 13-month intense course. What were the resistances going in?
Oh dear. Because I've been working on my sexuality for quite some time, and I used to be very afraid of it many years ago, because I felt lost in there as well, and all of that, and that really brought me on the path of sexuality. I would not call it sacred, because it definitely wasn't sacred, but I feel that back then I went through lots of shame and this kind of like pressure from the, from my upbringing and the conditioning rather from there. But now when I found this journey of 13 roses, and obviously, I had done many other journeys before, and I did the 13 roses as a 9-month personal journey. I think for me, the biggest resistances on this path is actually like, going even further, like stop avoiding and denying myself. Because in these practices, we have had to commit ourselves to daily practice, which at the beginning, especially when I joined my personal 9-month journey of the 13 roses, it was really difficult to find a concrete time that I would never skip, and dedicate this time for myself and for these practices, and explore further on. This has definitely been one of the biggest like initiations. It's basic for some people, or but it's quite a big step to be fully dedicated.
Yeah, I just want to interrupt there, because that is, some people are really good with structure and devoting time to certain things, and some people aren't. So isn't it that when we come to a body of work, our own things that we're not great with are challenged for, and that's a prime example of it. And yeah, like women are devotional beings. We are committed devotional beings, and the essence of the feminine has lost that. And coming into a devotional practice, as you say, for some people is difficult. They say they can't find the time, but it's not the truth, because we dissolve our time, don't we, in other unimportant things. And doing the soul work takes committed time. It really does. So, yeah, bravo for that and for sharing. That might be an issue for some people. Like, I can't find the time, I can't do it every day, but it's part of how the soul grows, isn't it?
Yes, and I know it by myself, like with myself, that you know I had every excuse in the world, and I know women, like every person, we are just full of excuses. Is it the work? Is it the children?
Yeah.
Whatever. But you can always arrange. There is always space to arrange your life so that you commit to your own journey. It's just like stopping the excuses and just doing it.
Yeah, someone once said to me, like, you can't be a marathon runner and not train for the marathon. And it's the same with anything, is it? If you want your soul to grow, you've got to give it space. You've got to train it. If you want to become a better life, you've got to train to get the better life. If you want to be a marathon runner, you've got to train to be a marathon runner. It's no different. So that is a really good point to highlight.
Yeah.
What did you find with, because the courses ask you to step up into a more sovereign place as a woman. They ask you to commit, they ask you to devote, they ask you to, stop playing small, to start being, all the things that come up for you in the course. Can you explain what resistance is like and what the treasure is when you actually, persist with a resistance spot?
Yeah, so I also want to mention that these courses always bring life situations into your life as well. They seem like not connected, but we are working with sacred sexuality and sexual energy, and it's all around us in everything. So for me, it's definitely what's the resistance feels. It's like for me, I think it feels like a stuck place. It's a place where I notice I'm just not moving forward. I just keep staying in the same place. And it's also like it makes you so uncomfortable emotionally.
Yeah.
Like, and you start finding all the no's. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. This, I can't, not good enough. No, I'm a really good no baby. So whatever you can tell me, I can find a reason to say, no, I don't want this. I don't like this. Not good enough. These are all resistances. Yeah. These are all, and we do, as women, we do also, we are also learning this, because sometimes no is a no and it's very concrete. But when it's resistance, it also kind of triggers these extra emotions and drama around.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that, because there's a point, isn't there, where, like, obviously myself as the guide in the forum will point out a resistance and it's not conscious. You're not aware that you're doing it. You're not aware that you're saying no to life. You're not aware that you're resisting your higher power so how useful is it to have somebody there saying, actually, this is a resistance in you, or this is something you can't see? And do you have an example of that?
I've got so many examples.
Me too.
Oh my God. Because I'm quite a solitary person. That's my comfort zone also. And I think it was, I don't think, I know it was you in one of our sessions saying that, Triinu, but that's really not normal for a 30-plus-year-old woman who should be all over the place doing things. And I was like, no, that's normal. It's just me. I'm introverted. Like these kind of like excuses and reasoning always come in. And then you need to like just really consciously open up the door that, okay, I have got these reasons why I'm like that, explanations, but maybe it isn't really normal. Maybe I am actually like missing out life and, different activities or people. Maybe there is something, I'm not connecting to. So
yeah, and that's perfect example to see how a resistance goes, no, I'm not, it's not about being normal, this is right for me. And we do that all the time, and then when we push into a resistance, we're like, well, what if that could be right? Maybe I try to live differently that way and see what happens for me. And we get so used to living our own way and doing it the way we think is right, we don't open the door for other opportunity. And that's a prime example. So it's like work in progress for all of us. Like, where do we shut doors on ourselves? And what happens if we actually challenge what we believe in ourselves and opened up to a different space?
Yes,
What
exactly.
happens? Treat me, what happens?
Oh dear, things start to move. And that's exactly the reason why we might be resisting these things, because we know things start to move, and these are kind of like new places, and obviously they bring up, they might bring up insecurities and other issues that we've been carrying but not realizing that they are inside of us. So, but I also, at the same time, you also feel this breeze of freshness, and there's a part of your soul that is just more fulfilled after that.
I totally agree. Like new air is always welcome when you've been swimming in the stagnancy of your own, your own rigidity, really, and inability to see. It is. It's very liberating to see the women in the group open their own doors and walk into different spaces that they've been, held in. That for me is very fulfilling to see. So if you were to say, like, what is the biggest thing you've realized about yourself doing this sexual work? Because when everybody talks about sexual work, they think it's all about orgasm and it's all about, like experience full body, like orgasms and having lots of sex. But sacred sexuality isn't about that. It's about removing the blockages from your primordial sexual energy. And we do work with some, beautiful, pleasuring, applications, don't we? But
Yeah.
it's not the be all, and we're not orgasm hunters. That's not what we're doing in this group. What we're doing in this group is exploring our bodies as women and finding out where the blocks are, what has challenged us, what we don't know about ourselves. So what would you say the biggest thing you've been working with in this group, what it has shown you, and what you were least expecting to find maybe in a sacred sexuality group?
Oh dear, because there are so many aspects to it.
Yeah, wrong.
Yeah. Mm, because I don't have one concrete answer. I have several. I have also like learned how I'm blocking the pleasure out of my life, and that during this course, this teacher training course, what I've really realized is the depletion, this inner depletion, where I've lived my life in, and it really makes me emotional, because this inner depletion guides all the actions and non-actions that you take in life. So it really contributes into the not living, not experiencing the life in its fullness, and that, of course, eventually does include pleasure, and the sexual part of the sexuality as well. So it's all linked. You cannot um, separate anything from
Yeah.
anything here. Yeah, but it's depletion.
It's a lovely it's a lovely example of depletion, because many women live in depletion in lots of ways in their lives. Depletion from love, depletion from food, depletion from money, depletion from, connection, all of those things. And when we work with the sexual energy of that in the body, it starts to show us exactly where we're depleting in. And this has been a big piece for Triinu and something she's been working in, and which, we say in our group, the more that you have an issue that you're working with, that you challenge, that you begin to heal, the more you're able to guide women into it, because it's a lived experience. We cover issues like abortion and miscarriage and all those controversial things that also block sexual energy. And we found it's much clearer from a woman who may have experienced it to embody and guide a woman through it than someone who has no experience of it, because it's they've not healed it. They don't know the healing path. They don't know how to help themselves. So Triinu
Yeah.
has like been really grappling with this within the forum to allow herself to come into pleasure, to come into abundance in life in general, because once your sexual energy comes through, the whole of your life changes. So that's
Mm.
a good example.
Yes.
Witnessing others in the group grapple with themselves, like you're grappling depletion or different areas, and then you're watching other women. How does that make you feel?
It makes you it makes you feel connected to other women. It actually makes you more compassionate towards others, and it helps to be more compassionate to yourself, because there's always, we share with other women, even though they might have like completely different experiences in life, like their issues might be the contrary to mine, but we know that the wound might be the same eventually. Like, it's the polarity, what you talk a lot about. So it teaches a lot. It gives not lived experience, because some things we just live through, through our life, but it still gives you this kind of like, you know, like you have observed and seen, witnessed other women healing some parts of themselves. And yeah, I think the biggest thing that it teaches is the compassion, and the compassion which makes you connected to other women and human beings and the whole world in general. This is also something we are so lacking and missing in this world. That's why we have all of the biggest problems that have come up now in the world are connected majorly to this, that we are literally, ignoring and not compassionate and connected with the nature and life and with each other.
Yeah, and it is really humbling to, like getting rid of all this, like, I'm perfect, my life is great, or I'm really
Yeah,
broken, and seeing that we as women are all great in many aspects and all really broken in aspects. And so
exactly.
our stories might be different, but ultimately we're all going and juggling the same things in just in different ways. So I agree.
Yes.
I agree. It creates compassion for each other. Their story might be different, but there's still pain and hurt and blockages there, and we hold them just in a different way. So yeah, I
Yes.
find that also keeps me very humble as a guide, in that I share with you lot the stuff that I'm going through and what I'm healing, and never having this hierarchical kind of
Mm,
view on each other, but just that we're women healing, and one may have had more experience in something than the other, and that's it. It doesn't make us any less than or more than. So
exactly.
yeah, the actual course content itself is, as you know, it's a transmission at the beginning of the month, and then you're given a series of what we call applications or practices that help the psyche get into the areas. Say if we're working with the breasts, or we're working with the cervix, or we work with the ovaries. But it's never just about that, is it? We know that like the cervix holds masculine and feminine wounding. And for example, we're in our ancestral walls, the yoni walls at the minute, that holds a lot of our ancestral woundings with the feminine. So when we get into the content, I really wanted to bring up what you said before, is that things start to happen in your life to
Mm,
help you heal that. I'm going to
mm.
put you on the spot a bit here. Do you have any examples of that, where we have been covering some content, say in the ovaries or the breasts, where life has shown you this needs healing and it works alongside the practices? I love this. I love this world that opens when we work with spirituality and sacredness, because we know that the one conspires to help us.
Yeah.
If you've got an example, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so one of these topics that has really come up for me, and it's very connected uh, with breasts, but now it came up, I think, oh gosh, which it was the gateway
Yeah.
in the last rose, and I hold a lot of maiden energy, and as a woman and as a normal growth in our life, we need to move on, and you know, our society and the whole conditioning that comes with it, it wants to keep us stuck. It wants to keep us in this as young, youthful, pretty little girls who at the same time are very harmless to the society as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
while we as women, you know, aging is normal. Our bodies change and they're normal. And, you know, that's why I've become stuck in Maiden. And the second phase would be the mother. And it doesn't mean to be, you know, have kids, but you can birth business, you can, you know, projects, nurture life around you. There's like so many aspects of it. Like, you know, it's much more wider than we just connect the word mother with.
and it's also like
Um,
about power, isn't it? The maiden, she's like carefree, fancy, she's experiencing life and help
yes.
others help her, and then when we step into the next phase of the mother, there's a lot more sovereignty and power and nurturing and giving. And then obviously the crone, which is the wisdom and all that we seek. And society is trying to keep us away from those two. These are archetypes, psychological archetypes, because the power lies in them for women. So yeah,
Exactly.
and you were stuck in this maiden, like there was no, and this is because ancient ceremonies are no longer part of our society where we transition a woman through a maidenhood to womanhood. So yeah, this key piece, give us an illustration.
I've been always being like, yeah, like searching, thinking what I want to do, very floaty, unstructured, and all of that. And for me, mother is much more, you know, grounded, and she's more structured. She's like full on life, honestly. And she's a much better and stronger leader than a maiden could ever be. So this is how I, you know, and it's so much more as well at the same time, but how I feel the mother. So it's really much about stepping into that. And what happened in our last gate, in our last rose, was that we found a little squirrel in the bottom of the garden in the forest, and I didn't want to take the responsibility, and it was actually Colette who took it at first.
Because that's my nature, to be in mother energy and to like it's part of a wounding that I take full responsibility of everything, and so I
Yeah.
recognize this.
Yes, and I recognized also with a lot of help with you that me, like my role in it, and I was like, oh my God, and this guilt trip that was actually, you know, I wasn't really conscious about pushing the responsibility away, throwing it on another person, but I felt my own guilt trip, you know, internal guilt trip, like boosting and booming up at the same time, and that was very much linked with that. and and it's been absolutely humbling and beautiful. It brings me also to tears,
Oh.
um, to see this little crazy creature growing up, and having to feed her through the night. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I never had this experience in my life, and I also felt the gaps of where I'm like, I feel powerless, like, oh, I don't know what to do, and also like parts where I would like to push her away, not engage, leave her, you know, these kind of airy gaps. I feel that as well, and you know, it's all about experience and feeling them in at the
Yeah,
same time.
and you
So
got the
yeah,
initiation, didn't you? The initiation
yeah,
came to step into the mother, and Triinu doesn't have children, and mother initiations aren't about having kids. They're about stepping into the mother role, nurturing, loving, looking after life, nurturing life, giving life a chance on the planet, knowing all beings, all humans are equal and all deserve love and attention, and that's been the initiation that Triinu's
yes,
given, and us being conscious of our woundings and our shadows and all of that thing allowed this to happen, because if I wasn't aware of my own behavior I could have just took that and, like I've done many times in the past, nurtured that animal. But this was a prime example where the one came in and said, here's a time, Trini, for you to step into an initiation of a mother, and you've so greatly took that. And anyone who's on my social medias can see how good a job she's doing with that squirrel, because she's absolutely, you know, thriving, and will be, by the way, rewilded, because another initiation that Trini will have to face is letting go of,
Oh, yes.
of that thing she has nurtured and loved.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So yeah, thank you for that heartfelt, you know, we're taught in the group to be emotional, to allow our emotions to come out. It's the beauty of being a feminine. When something touches us, we can cry. When something angers us, we can rage. Isn't that part of the embodiment of being the sacred sexual feminine, in that the emotional body is part of that power too?
Absolutely. And I must honestly say, before doing this work, I always thought that, you know, showing out your emotions, not showing your vulnerability and anger and all of that should be repressed. It's not good. It's a sign of weakness. It is absolute bullshit. It is, I would say, the contrary. It takes so much more courage to show yourself in the vulnerability, you know, and at the same time you allow yourself to feel, and that it allows you to actually move on much faster.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I could talk to you all day, Trini, but you know that, you know. So what I'm going to do is just round up with the last question, in, you know, wanting to showcase you and how you're going to come out into the world. So, you know, the women are they're still, what, how many months? 4 or 5 months off the end of the course. So we're getting to a stage where they're beginning to feel, how am I going to bring this work out into the world from what I've experienced, what I've embodied? And they're starting to feel into what they want to give back out there, in what they want to teach and share with women. So I'm going to ask you, what feelings and musings have you had so far on how you might put this work together? Because what you already teach, yoga, you're already in part of like a feminine connection. Your website is coming out soon, isn't it, with the work that you do? So you're going to be merging this with it. What is the niche areas? What are you going to be offering women that you're feeling into so far?
Yeah, like definitely this maiden energy, which I have a lot of experience with, and I'm still obviously, of course, working because it's huge. So definitely the maidenness of women, and maidenness is so much linked with powerlessness.
Yeah.
How we do not come to our power. How does the powerlessness play out in your life? So these are definitely the areas. Also the depletion, how do we deplete ourselves from life? And that again keeps us powerless. It keeps us literally, what I've experienced, physically unable to function, or, you know, less able to function. So this and anxiety, because they are all connected, and anxiety is something that I have felt since my childhood, school age, and sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't, sometimes you push it back. So how to better regulate, how to recognize it, and you know, move through it. So definitely, and obviously all of these areas are preventing us, you know, from embodying the sacred sexuality, embodying experiencing pleasure. Yeah. So definitely this, and something that I also am working a lot and have held very much is how we women project things on the masculine. So especially from the maiden point of view, how we expect a prince ride in on this white horse. Doesn't happen, will never work. So yes, these are my niche areas.
That's exactly it. You know, I couldn't have pulled them out better for you with the places that you're experiencing embodiment in and the areas that you know inside out and what have dogged you in your life and prevented you from accessing the powerful woman that you are. And obviously that's still in progress. And like me, I'm still working on major themes in my life, but I have the experience in the embodiment and the training to be able to help women along the way too. So we will look forward to you emerging out of your, you know, your chrysalis and into the butterfly that you are, Triinu, and women will be able to find you and your work. Under this video, we will give links to where they can find you should they have some key pieces like that you've experienced, like anxiety, projection on the masculine, you know, maidenness that they want to work with. So it's with a great big thanks and a huge hug for your bravery and your warrior-like energy that's come into this forum to actually heal yourself and transform for your ancestors, for yourself, and for the collective of women out there. So thank you very much for this interview, Triinu, and look forward to seeing your work out there.
Thank you very much for inviting me on this interview. And yes, I am here, and all the links will be shared and absolutely reachable for everyone who is interested.